Welcome everyone to the live streaming of this meeting of the Subcommittee on Government Operations and Health Facilities. We have 4 bills on our agenda today. We're going to start with Senate Bill 183, State Government Information Technology. Counsel, Lindsay Rowe.
This is a departmental bill from DeWitt. It clarifies that executive branch agencies must advise the Department of Information Technology of any information technology proposal involving the sale, lease, exchange, or other disposition of communication sites, facilities, or frequencies, and when determining the value of a transaction, include other consideration obtained by the state. There are no amendments on this, and there was no opposition.
And there was no cross-file. Oh, it was a departmental bill?
Right, no cross-file.
Okay. Is there discussion on this bill? Yes, Delegate Hill.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And this is what I was going to ask before. So Lindsay, no problem with the bill. I just don't quite understand. I've looked at the fiscal note and I think, can you help me better understand what it is, what these things are, these sites, facilities? And I think I know what a frequency is. I just didn't know that. I thought the federals owned frequencies. I didn't know we had frequencies to sell. So can you, I'm not quite understanding what these are.
I guess I wish that someone from DeWitt were here to help.
Okay, all right, never mind.
I'm afraid I don't know specifically what kind of frequencies they might have either.
Or what the sites are or any of that stuff. Okay,
I'm sorry, I can't.
all right, that's fine.
Give those kind of specifics.
Mr. Chair, maybe you have a lot of broad experience. Do you understand what they're talking about in this bill?
No, I can't say that I know more than staff for sure.
Okay,
Yeah.
all right, thank you all.
I do see that it
It is
passed
advisory.
unanimously in the Senate, right?
And there was who testified on the bill?
So DeWitt testified in the Senate and there was no opposition.
So if there were
And
presumably.
it was a unanimous vote in the Senate.
Yeah, on the floor.
Move
Yes.
favorable.
Yeah, okay. Bills move favorable. Is there a second?
A second.
All those in favor of the favorable, say aye.
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 One opposed? No one is opposed. It is favorable. Senate Bill 192, State Procurement and Minority Business Enterprise Program Reauthorization Extension. This is an MDOT departmental bill. Council?
Yes. This is a bill to extend the termination date for the state's Minority Business Enterprise Program by 2 years until July 1st, 2024, and extends the deadline for MDOT to submit a completed disparity study to the General Assembly by September 30th, 2023. This bill was also a unanimous vote in the Senate. There's no opposition and no amendment.
Is this similar to the Maryland Suburban Sanitation Commission bill that it extended?
Yeah, they both require a
this
disparity study to reauthorize
disparity
programs
study.
periodically, and the disparity study was delayed by COVID.
Okay.
I'm sorry, can you tell me what bill we're on?
We're on
Certainly.
Senate Bill 192.
Yeah, thank you, Faye.
We've only done 183, which was the unanimous favorable. Now we're doing Senate Bill 192 because we wanted to wait on the bills that might get more discussion until we had more people.
Move the bill.
Second.
All those in favor, any discussion? All those in favor of the bill, say aye.
You have a
Anyone-
hand up, Mr. Chair.
Oh, sorry, Delegate Saliga.
Thank you. Is it the same? Did we conform it to our House bill? I'm sorry,
is no
Lindsay,
House
you
bill.
probably said it, but
That's
There's no
okay.
House bill. These bills didn't have cross files because
These are
there's-
departmentals.
okay, all right. It looked like the other, one of the ones we passed, it looks a little similar. Okay, thank you.
There was a similar bill on the WSSC's
Yeah.
minority business program. They both require disparity studies that were delayed by COVID. So they're both asking for extensions. This is the statewide MBE program.
And it's just extending the deadline.
It's extending it
The
by 2 years and
previous-
extending the deadline for the disparity study also.
Okay, thank you.
Because the program terminates without a disparity study to say that there's still a need for remedial measures to have the program in place.
As constitutionally mandated.
Yeah.
Okay, any further debate? All those in favor of the bill? Aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? It is unanimous. Okay. Let's do Senate Bill 269, Open Meeting Act.
So this
Council,
is a cross file. Excuse me, I have my wrong file in front of me. This is a cross file of a bill that this committee passed and actually is identical to the cross file, the way it was passed by the House. But there are a few issues to raise. The first is the fiscal note on this bill. So sorry, this is Open Meetings Act application and enhanced requirements. This identified certain entities that would have enhanced Open Meetings Act requirements. And if you all might recall, there were amendments adopted in the House and also on this Senate bill that would establish that project site visits and educational field tours are not meeting subject to the Open Meetings Act. The fiscal note noted that some of the entities covered in the bill with the enhanced open meetings requirements didn't get that exception for their project site visits and educational field tours. I circulated a little Excel sheet that I put together that listed what the entities in the bill are and whether or not they've been covered by that exception. So, and another difference between the Senate bill and the House bill is that the Senate bill also included the historic St. Mary's City Commission in the entities that were covered by the bill, so that bringing them in through that language, they also didn't receive that site visit and educational field tour exception. So the first issue that I wanted to raise to you all was putting in language to apply that exception to all of the entities in the bill. I think this could be accomplished easily looking at the Senate bill on page 15 by adding in a provision that would match the language that you see elsewhere in the bill, saying for purposes of the Open Meetings Act, project site visit or educational field tour shall not be considered a meeting of an entity listed in this section of the bill. And that way, if anybody else gets added into this section for the Enhanced Open Meetings Act requirements, the exception will apply to them. And you don't need to piecemeal it all over the place in code, which was the approach originally taken by the sponsors amendment that was adopted in the House.
Delegate Hill, followed by Delegate Kaiser.
Thank you. So Lindsay, I remember that bill, and right, you're right, at each one, we put that language. So if we amend it slightly differently, then what, it'll go to conference and they'll just adopt it, or because it's substantively doing the same, what happened? If we don't amend it with the same language and we do it in a different way.
Both the House bill and the Senate bill were amended identically in their original chambers. So the House amended the bill identically to this, with the exception of the Historic St. Mary's City Commission, which was an amendment that was presented in the House too late for us to have added it, but they put it in on the Senate.
Okay.
But the Senate could concur in these
The
amendments,
Senate could concur in our amendments.
Well,
and we'll
Have to go to
hopefully
conference.
have
committee.
discussions to bring that about.
so I would move whatever Lindsay recommended, which is to put the language in differently or specifically for St. Mary's. I wasn't clear if you were saying.
So what I'm suggesting is if you look in this bill I didn't count, let's say 10 different locations. It, for the purposes of the Open Meetings Act, a project site visit or educational field tour shall not be considered a meeting of the blank entity if no organizational business is conducted. What I'm proposing is taking that language and putting it into this specific section, which begins on bottom of page 11 of the bill, 3307. The Enhanced Open Meetings Act requirements lists, let's see, 17 different entities on page 12. All of those entities would be exempted from the Open Meetings Act for the purposes of a site visit or educational field tour if they're not conducting any public business. And that way, if an 18th or 19th or 20th entity gets added to this section sometime in the future, it's our, rather than having it in code in each location. And the reason this was missed for certain of these entities is because if they weren't already shown elsewhere in the bill, their section of the code, then it got missed and it wasn't put in. So having one place I'm proposing is a way to cover everybody who ends up in these Enhanced Open Meetings Act requirements.
So Mr. Chair, if I may.
Go ahead.
Thank
Please.
you. So I'm looking at the bill now and I see, as you said, St. Mary's is missing that. We've put it on each of the other sections, just, very detailed. Is your proposal that we remove all of those and just do this overarching one that will cover anything coming forward, or that we keep it where we've individually put it in and we additionally add that language? That's what I'm confused about.
Well, I was not going to propose that we strike it from everywhere else, just because I was trying not to complicate things, and all that it would mean is you have duplicative language. You can strike it in all those other locations if you want.
Okay.
I
No,
will note,
no,
though, that one corrective thing that I would also suggest is that when this language was added in, the language was written as shall not, which is not our preferred drafting convention, and it
May
should
not,
may not.
right.
Okay, got
I
it.
would suggest correcting it in those other places, but it would otherwise just be duplicative language for the sections that it's shown. It's duplicative with the one overarching section that I'm proposing.
And just technically, when we have duplicative language or where there are errors, doesn't DLS just correct those? Isn't there, in other words, if it's duplicative, do we have to actually amend out or whatever, or just leave it that way?
We don't generally remove duplicative language through the corrective bill. We remove obsolete language, things like before, December 1st, 2009, such entity shall do this thing. We might remove that, once it's a decade on, and obviously that requirement's not applicable anymore. But the fact that it's duplicative, we wouldn't usually remove it, especially because if the Enhanced Open Meetings Act section that I'm referring to were to ever be removed from law for some reason, then the language would still apply in each of these sections of code. So it's sort of up to you all if you are concerned about having duplicative language or if you prefer to have duplicative language.
Okay, so the language you're saying will affect the things we've already done it to and any future thing, unless the body comes back at some future time and removes the section that you're suggesting we add now.
Yes.
I would
Okay.
suggest that we defer to council's drafting decisions. Okay? No objection. That's what we will proceed with. Is there a motion to adopt
Move
amendments?
the
as
bill
so
as
described?
amended.
We're not done with amendments, sorry.
We have to
That
adopt
was
the
just the
amendments
first one.
first. So, you mean you want to do a second amendment for St. Mary's?
No.
Or you-
Historic St. Mary's is actually already on the Senate bill. They'll have to add it on.
Okay, to the House bill.
That was just a difference that I was noting. The other thing that I wanted to raise, and unfortunately, I don't see anyone from the Office of the Attorney General here, but I also circulated with the information for today's meeting testimony from the Office of the Attorney General that was suggesting some additional amendments on this bill. What they asked for 3 amendments. The first is that they wanted to put in a special section that the intent is that requirements may not be construed to require disclosure of documents or material that would be exempt from disclosure under the Public Information Act.
Can you say that again, please?
The Office of the Attorney General wanted to add a special section to the end of the bill that it's the intent of the General Assembly that requirements of the bill may not be construed to require disclosure or documents or material that would be exempt from disclosure under the Public Information Act. Now that's already true, but this would clarify that the intent of the General Assembly under this bill.
I'll move that amendment.
Second.
Any objection? Okay. Council?
Okay. The second is that, they wanted to require meeting minutes from the most recent meeting unless it's not on the agenda of the next meeting, unless it is not practicable due to the need to schedule an emergency meeting. So their concern is that the requirement that the agenda include consideration of the meeting minutes from the prior meeting, if let's say the prior meeting was on a Monday, if some emergency arises, then they need to meet on Wednesday. They might not have minutes prepared or ready to consider at that meeting. So they wanted to clarify that.
Wasn't there some provision in the bill that sort of within what was practicable, or was it a hard number? Never mind. I guess it doesn't hurt.
So there was language about clarifying that it was, looking for it. Actually, I think we're thinking about a different bill, and I was thinking the same thing, but I think that was language in a different bill.
Okay.
But it wasn't about it was similar language, but not dealing with the same entities. Is that fair?
Well, this is just these particular entities with the enhanced open meetings requirements.
So this bill does say at least 48 hours in advance of each meeting, or if the meeting is being held due to an emergency, a natural disaster, or any other unanticipated situation, as far in advance of the meeting as practicable. Is
That's
that-
for posting information on their website.
Okay, so no reason not to do what the AG is asking, so I guess, so.
No, not particularly. It's just clarifying again that if they've got an emergency meeting, they have not been given enough time because it's not practicable, then they don't have to consider the.
I'll move the amendment.
Second.
Any discussion? No objection to the amendment? So will be adopted.
And then the third
Third,
amendment
Go
that the Office of the Attorney General brought up was adding language that nothing from the enhanced open meetings requirements should be construed to prevent a public body from altering the agenda of a meeting after the agenda has been made available to the public. I think that this language is sort of getting at the same thing that the special section that you all adopted on the House bill and the Senate also adopted that said that is the intent of the General Assembly, that the requirement for publication of documents, testimony from the public and other materials in advance of an open meeting may not be construed to limit the discussions and deliberations of the public body to matters that were referenced in those materials published prior to the meeting. So this is just clarifying that the public body can also alter the agenda after it's been made available to the public.
Move the amendment.
second, no objection.
I have
All
a
the-
question.
Certainly. I'm sorry, go ahead, Delegate Kaiser.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you, Lindsay. I understand the point of what the Attorney General's office wants here. Obviously, changes happen at the last minute. Some new document was received, something new has come up. But then my concern is it could potentially be misused to kind of hide the ball and provide the information and not let people know in advance of something. So is there a way to, with our legislative intent here, but all intents practicable that the things should have been in on time? I don't know what the right words are, but I would be worried if this started happening too much, that agendas started changing too often. So I'm just putting that out there. I don't know if it deserves any correction or any other language, but I would, and maybe the answer is, we come back next year. So if this becomes a problem, so that would be my only concern.
I'm assuming that these amendments came from I don't know the official title of the person who is a member of the Attorney General's staff, who is the oversight or on the Public Meetings Act. Do you know if that's
It
the
actually
case?
didn't come, so you're right that the Office of the Attorney General staffs the Open Meetings Act Compliance Board, if that's what you're thinking about.
Right, thank you.
This came from their Legislative Affairs Council. Hannah,
Well, it could have been with input.
I mean, it could have been in
Shelley,
consult, but I have no idea
Right.
the background on the letters.
Okay.
I'll withdraw my concern because I do know if it becomes a problem, we're back in January.
Right. Okay, so the amendments are adopted without objection. Is there a motion on the bill as amended?
The bill is amended.
Second,
So moved and seconded. All those in favor say aye.
can I say one other thing?
Absolutely.
I'm just reminded that Delegate Kipke pointed out during the full committee session that how did another delegate steal such a bill from Delegate Carr? And I would point out also that we all piled on. So I'm sure that made Delegate Carr feel even worse. So just for some humor needed in our day, sorry.
Well spoken and well delivered. Okay, final bill, House Bill 1105.
So this is
Did
actually,
we actually vote on 269? Did we all say yay?
Oh, I guess, okay. All those in favor say aye. Anyone opposed? No one is opposed. Thank you, Delegate Kaiser. All right, House Bill 1105, Public Safety 9/11.
so this is
Emergency
actually
Health-
two bills now. We heard the cross file yesterday. So, I'm assuming you want to end up with these two bills in the same posture. So they're now both on the agenda for today. Discussions began on 11:05 last week or a couple weeks ago. It's all running together at the end of session. So just as a reminder, this is the bill that establishes a definition of first responder for use in the public safety article, establishes specified rights for 911 specialists related to occupational well-being, and requires counties to classify 911 specialists as first responders and pay them an amount that exceeds the state minimum wage, modifies the state's Maryland 911 board's procedures for filling vacancies on the board, and requires the board rather than the governor to select a chair and a vice chair, expands the 911 board's responsibilities related to the development of training standards, including required implicit bias training and implementation of cybersecurity standards by public safety answering points, establishes new reporting requirements for the comptroller related to audits of surcharge collection and remittance of 911 fees by telephone companies and commercial mobile radio service providers, repeals the limit on the maximum charge for the county 911 fee, and requires a county that increases the fee to certify the amount to the Maryland 911 board and no later than 60 days before the implementation of the change to the comptroller. A couple weeks ago, when you all met, you adopted amendments from Delegate Hill that require the implicit bias training to be once every 4 years after initial training at the time of hire or by October 1st, 2024 for the existing personnel. That amendment would match House Bill 1105 to the Senate Bill 633 as it passed the Senate. The second amendment, which you all did not vote on a couple weeks ago, came from Chair Pendergrass, which restores the maximum county 911 fee at $1.50 per month.
But that amendment has been withdrawn, is that correct? Or is it still
Not
before?
aware that it's been withdrawn.
Okay, well, let me
It
put it
hasn't been
differently.
voted by this subcommittee.
The chairman has informed me that this is jump ball, as we used to say on judiciary. That is, it's the will of the committee. It's the will of the subcommittee as to how we should handle the funding issue. So, Delegate Hill, I assume you would want to speak, or well, Delegate
so-
Chisholm has,
Okay, well, I
Delegate
mean,
Chisholm has his hand raised, so we'll get to you next.
Well, hopefully Delegate Hill can answer my question. I just wanted you to repeat what you said that Chair Pendergrass's amendment did. It capped it at $1.50. Am I correct on that?
So
Yeah.
right now, oh, I'm sorry. So right
County.
now, the county, there's a state fee that's 50 cents and a county fee that's 75 cents. If the county, if the revenues from that 75 cents fall short, then for the next fiscal year, the county can increase the fee to $1.50 per month. The bill takes that away the specific $1.50 per month and instead allows the county to impose a fee that is sufficient to cover the county's projected operational costs for the 911 system for the fiscal year. And in testimony yesterday, Senator Kagan said, so the county is subject to the check of their voters. So they're not likely to increase it totally out of control, but there are 4 counties right now that have raised their fee to the maximum $1.50 and are still having a shortfall. So that there's an expectation that those counties would presumably raise their fee above that amount. And it's just for that fiscal year, unless there's continued shortfall, then they can apply it for the following fiscal year. Otherwise, the 75-cent cap stays in place. And this change is from 2019. There was a bill that this bill and the bill from 2019 came out of the Commission to Advance Next Generation 911 in Maryland. The 2019 bill increased the state fee from 25 cents to 50 cents. And it also applied these fees to each line of a phone rather than so if you have a cell phone with a family plan that's got 5 lines on it, the fee would apply to each line on that plan rather than just one. So that was sort of the big increase from 2019 is that the application to each phone line rather than to each bill of the fee.
So the bottom line is the counties could raise it uncapped if they wished, if they believe that's what it's going to take to
It'll be up to them.
make sure the fund is solvent. Okay, thank you.
Delegate Hill.
yeah, so I mean, Lindsay's basically explained the more controversial piece. And I think the slight clarification, both the local, what we did in 2019 was allow both the local and the state fee. So it went So the state doubled from 25 cents to 50 cents, and it was per line instead of per account. And the local, I thought, went from 50 to $1. So the maximum fee is 150. Some of the states, some of the jurisdictions that have raised it, and I sent out a chart 2 weeks ago, and I can resend it, that shows you the 6 states that have raised the fee since 2019. 4 of them, I mean jurisdictions, counties, 4 of them are at the maximum. They're at 150, and they're still millions of dollars short. And because it's a fee, they can't raise it higher than what it takes to cover the cost of running 911 operations.
Thank you.
Obviously, every jurisdiction needs to run 911 operations. And so what those jurisdictions are doing now is they're taking it out of their general funds, even money that would have gone to schools or money that would have gone to something else to cover their 911 cost. And since there are other jurisdictions that feel like they can cover it or they're close to covering, although the information across the state is almost everyone's at least a few $1 million short. It just seemed to make more sense than having the state say to cover, county, you got to stick with 150. And they may be saying, well, we don't have that many cell phones, so the increase in fee just isn't covering our costs. Because 911 is going to cost the same whether you've got, high density of cell phone and phone lines to cover it or you don't. And so that's basically the point. If you look at the chart, you can see which counties have been have raised it to the max and are still not meeting their costs.
So the thrust of your amendment is to address the problem that.
No, there's no amendment. I would like to resist the amendment that's been offered by the chair. I think the bill should stand as is.
Oh, okay.
And aligned with the Senate bill that neither should be amended further. We took our amendments 2 weeks ago. I'm satisfied.
Oh, you took your amendments on the training.
Correct, to lower the
Correct.
fiscal load, right.
Oh, so we would leave the bill as it is in the Senate. Did the Senate amend it? I should know this, but I'm sorry.
Yes,
Senate and
the
the-
Senate did the same amendment on the implicit bias training only.
Right, but did the Senate, thank you, did the Senate make any change to the funding aspect?
No.
Okay. Delegate Kaiser, followed by Delegate Young and Delegate Saliga.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have a few questions, and Delegate Hill was updating me a little bit before, but I need to better understand some of this funding piece. I heard you mention, Lindsay, that of the current $1.50 that's, I think, usually charged or always charged per line, it's 50 cents goes to the state and 75 cents goes to the county. So first question is where is the other quarter going? Is that going just to the phone people themselves?
No, to clarify, so the fee, there's a 50-cent state fee and a 75-cent max county fee.
Max.
And if the county's short on that 75-cent fee to cover their operations for 911, they can increase it for the following fiscal year up to $1.50.
And so $1.50 total, you mean? So they
for the
still just
county,
get the
so the
dollar.
state fee is still there. The county fee can be increased to up to $1.50.
From the 75
I'm
cents.
sorry, Lindsay, I thought the county fee could go up to $1. The maximum fee total, state and county, was 150, but maybe I'm wrong.
No, it's a county 911 fee not exceeding 150 per month. If you
Okay.
have House Bill 1105 on page 11.
So it can go up from 75 cents to $1.50.
Right.
Okay, and
And the reason we're saying up
County
to
fee.
$1.50 is they don't have to raise it that high. So
no,
that
I understand.
Hill has mentioned there's 4 counties. They are Caroline, Carroll, Garrett, and Worcester that have raised it to the maximum $1.50, and they are still facing a shortfall.
And so so now I better understand, because I wasn't sure if you meant the original $1.25 going up to 150 or the county's piece. And then
It's the
let me
county's
ask,
piece.
and then the 50 cents to the state, what is that? What does that go towards?
That's going to the state 911 board.
Okay.
So their operations, and they, as I understand it, are fine funding wise.
So they're not having a shortfall. And has there ever been any auditing, and maybe I missed this, in terms of why some counties are having more trouble than others with the 75 cents? Or has there been any look at why some counties are having trouble and some are not?
Delegate Hill can probably speak to this,
Yeah.
having worked on the commission.
Yeah, so the state board does work with the local jurisdictions on a variety of things. So the only auditing that's been done of the fees as far as what was presented with the commission is that the comptroller has to audit how the telecommunications companies, as they collect these fees, how they remit that over to the jurisdictions and to the state. And we did hear some evidence that that the telecommunications companies in some cases are either unclear or for other reasons are not remitting everything that needs to come over. So that's why there are some enhanced reporting requirements that these alterations, this omnibus bill puts on the comptroller. And that may also mitigate the need for local jurisdictions. If they're actually getting what they need to get, it would be really hopeful that they won't have to raise it at all or very much. But the bottom line is right now, they're not covering their cost.
And so I just want to understand, thank you, Mr. Chair. So I understand that you're not recommending the chair's amendment. So what does your bill do on the fee? Allows it to go up to whatever it needs to be to cover the costs?
Since that is the only source for covering local 911 PSAP operations, it is saying that the local jurisdictions have the authority to alter that fee or raise that fee as needed to make sure that they're covering the cost of 911 operations.
I mean, I think every fee that's out there should cover the cost of what it does. But I would also be concerned because I think we all like having 911. In fact, we all never want to have to call it. But when we call it, we want to ensure that wherever we are in the state of Maryland, we get the response necessary. I guess I don't want to have the limit, but I feel like part of the reporting should maybe be some way of looking at what the jurisdictions are doing to know why maybe some are having problems and some aren't.
So maybe what you're suggesting is some report from, and we can always call for that. It doesn't have to be in the bill, but remember that.
I don't want to slow down the bill, delegate.
No, but what I'm saying is that I hear what you're saying is that because the board is disappearing, I mean, the 911 commission disappears, the board will exist. It's now at a cabinet level, right? But we can certainly either ask for annual reports from the board to the relative legislative bodies on how they are doing with the advancement of Next Gen 911, because they're also requiring, that certain updates be done, and that they also report back on how fees are being collected and if we're meeting those obligations. So a lot of the things that we're requiring the locals to do has to do with cybersecurity and some other things like that. And so this certainly would be reasonable for this committee and other committees of jurisdiction to ask the board to report to us on a regular basis. But I guess my question to Lindsay is, can't the chairs just send letters and saying we want a report, or does that have to be in a bill?
It can be a letter asking for a report, but it wouldn't be mandated without legislation.
I would,
Like to be responsive to letters from chairs, but
Lindsay, would it be difficult to compose either an amendment to the bill itself or uncodified language? Would that slow the bill down?
I guess the question would be, do you want the nature of the report that you want? I'd have to go look specifically, but I imagine the 911 board has some sort of annual report now. So it could be a requirement to add to that annual report, or if it's a short-term duration, like you want one report in a year, so that you can come back and ask for something next session, then that would be special session.
I could certainly work with you on that. And if Delegate Kaiser or anyone else wants to, we could have it by voting session. I think it's certainly reasonable. I mean, there's a department level board, right? And their job is to make sure that we have integrated 911 operations and that those costs are being covered. And so if there's not a report that they regularly do now, to report back to us saying folks are doing what they're supposed to do, it would be a very reasonable thing to do.
Okay, since the sponsor is okay with such language, is there any objection from any of the other members?
Yeah, I think we should finish discussion before we move forward, please.
Okay, Delegate Young.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I think a lot of what I was going to say has probably been covered in particular by Delegate Hale. I was very uncomfortable with the amendment to cap the $1.50 when I first heard it, particularly since there was some kind of a study or financial evaluation. And I thought that we ought to be able to see that before we put on a financial restriction. Also, I think we need to give the county some flexibility. Their circumstances are all different. We asked them to provide the service and then put this arbitrary cap on. And now I'm hearing the chair doesn't feel that strongly about it. So my preference is to just not do that amendment. Thank you.
Delegate Saliga.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So just to be clear, this is $1.50 currently capped at a total of $1.50 per line per month. Is that right, Lindsay?
The county fee is $1.50. So between the county fee and the state fee, if you are in one of the counties that has raised it to $1.50, your fee is $2 per line per month.
So it'd be safe to say the other counties will potentially get there. So current law says the fee could be $2 per line per month.
It could be. There's 4 counties that are at that top of that cap now.
Okay, so if a family has four or 5 lines, and listen, it includes your watch. So any of you that have a watch, that's $2. If you have a phone, it's $2. And if you have your iPad, that's $2. So a person like me with a watch and a phone, and then you have a family of 4 times 2, that's 8 times 2 is $16 a month is what we're talking about a fee for a family of 4 currently. So if you lift the cap, it could be whatever it could be. So I am very concerned about lifting a cap when the fee's already allowable at that level. So Lindsay, you said the state has money. How much extra money do they have in the fund that they're collecting 50 cents?
I don't have that information offhand.
So perhaps we should be asking the question, if the state fund is sufficient, can they help the locals who need a little extra money? I mean, they potentially could do that. Instead of increasing a fee, we should ask, is there sufficient money in the other fee to help them? And then next, I would like to point out that Caroline, Carol, Garrett, and what were the 4 counties that you said, Lindsay?
I think Worcester was the
Yeah,
4th.
Caroline, Carroll, Garrett, and Worcester.
So I would venture to, oh, my watch is talking to me. It heard me mention it.
Was it an emergency?
So those 4 counties that we're speaking of, I would venture to pretty safely say that legislators from those 4 counties would not want you to raise the fee. They would say, let's figure it out. Perhaps the general fund, because this is brand new. They may not need this funding forever. You know, they still haven't fully implemented this program. I would venture to say, you all know who represents those 4 counties would want you to not lift the cap and say, let's look at figuring out how to do it first without lifting the cap.
Delegate Kerr, followed by Delegate Kaiser.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Delegate Saliga, I just wanted to clarify something you said. You're only referring to Apple Watches and iPads that have a cellular plan, right? Not the ones that are in Wi-Fi. Okay, thank you.
Right, but every device you have on your plan. So whatever devices, some people
Okay.
have 3 or 4 per person.
But it's per line, not device, right? So
No,
if you're,
but my watch has its own line.
okay, but some
and-
people
and
don't. So I just wanted to be clear.
My
It's not the number of
iPad has
devices.
its own line.
It's the
So-
number of lines.
All mine are
It-
Wi-Fi, so it doesn't apply to me.
Yeah, but many people, especially young people, are more hip, Ken.
You got to pay to be hip.
Apparently, you might have to pay
Who
more.
wrote
for
that
it.
song? Delegate Kaiser.
I'm not as fortunate as Delegate Shalega to have so many lines with that cell data connection. So, I mean, again, that's choice someone makes to pay for all those things. But more seriously, I heard you say, Delegate Shalega, that the people representing those 4 districts would probably not want the cap to be lifted. But, I mean, in a sense, by changing how the cap is dealt with at the local level, that's a local control issue. And in none of those 4 jurisdictions would they need to raise the cap. So, I mean, are we allowing for local control here or not? So I would say letting those jurisdictions decide, because they're already doing something. I don't think you're wrong that if the state has a surplus, that maybe it should be used, but then that goes back to the report. I would love to see to know what is actually happening in the counties and what is actually happening with the state dollars. And maybe the state doesn't need the 50 cents. Maybe that could be reduced and then all the jurisdictions could have a little more. But I think it's an issue of local control. Thank you.
Okay, there are no further hands. So the amendment before us, I believe, is with regard to further study.
And
Correct. That's
There
the
would be no
amendment.
amendment
If it's
to
a-
the language.
Is
That
this an
was-
ongoing report or a one-time report? I think is one of the main questions. For
I
Okay,
think it should be annual for 5 years and extended. We can always extend it or stop it sooner. So
Delegate Kaiser, is that still your hand up?
Oh, I apologize. No.
That's okay. Is there any objection to 5 years? Annual report, 5 years. So that would be statutory language,
Yep.
which is fine. That's fine.
And there hasn't been a vote on the chair's amendment.
I don't think it's been moved.
Yeah,
Well,
Move the chair's amendment.
okay.
Second.
Is there a second to the chair's amendment?
Second,
Second. All right. Is there debate? The chair's amendment would impose a cap.
and we can always come back next year if we need to raise that cap. There's nothing that says we can't raise the cap, but I think removing the cap to unlimited, whatever you want to do, I don't think serves our citizens well. And so I would say, let's keep the cap. I mean, people already haven't reached it. And we can come back next year if we need to and raise it or address this other way of not having a cap.
Okay. All those in favor of the chair's amendment, let's do this with electronically raised hands. All those in favor of the chair's amendment. There are 2 in favor. All those opposed to the chair's amendment, please raise your electronic hand. Delegate Zaliga, I think you want to put your hand down. Can't
I
vote
do,
for-
and I'm wondering if Kipke can hear us because I know he's waiting on a bill hearing. He probably wanted to be recorded as supporting the chair's amendment.
I thought he might be frozen, but he just moved a second ago. So it's tough. Well, okay, we will leave that open for him to change, record himself. So the amendment is rejected. There are 5 opposed. Okay. There is some movement in the body. Nick, can you hear us? No.
okay, I know that you all have to get to bill hearing. So
Okay,
Amendment is reporting language that will be annual 5-year report to this.
annual for 5 years.
Yes.
Okay,
Annual, once a year for 5 years.
right.
And Delegate Hill, Delegate Kaiser, and I will work out some language about specifically what that report will cover. And we will,
Okay, so that is the amendment, the one amendment to the bill.
we'll circulate it to this subcommittee before, whenever this bill comes up for a vote in our voting.
Okay. Is there any objection to that? Please put down your hands, those of you who are still voting. All right, is there a motion on the bill as amended?
So moved.
Moved
Second.
and seconded. All those in favor of the bill as amended, please, let's go electronic, because there may be no's. All those in favor of the bill, please raise your hand. Okay. All those opposed, lower your hands if you previously had raised them. Okay, and we will allow Delegate Kipke to cast his vote here as well.
He is
He's
voting.
on.
He's got it.
Oh, he has been unfrozen. Okay, fine. So the bill passes. That is the
And
work
then
before us.
lastly, we'll just
Oh.
conform Senate Bill 633 to the same way that you've
Thank you.
amended
you.
this bill.
No objection, no objection. Okay. You're free to party on until the full committee, which started 10 minutes ago, presumably. Thank you.